And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And now, Barbados. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
What is on your mind, Cayman? If you are ready to talk, we are ready to listen. Here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, welcome, and thank you for joining us. And I trust and pray you had a beautiful, blessed, safe, and very relaxing and enjoyable Easter. As we invite you to be a part of a discussion and start off with our friends from the Kiwanis Club. If you heard us earlier on the Business Buzz, well, you get a chance to hear it again. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Avoid any statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use indecent language or make any statement that is false or misleading. Call 1-800-534-8255, 949-6990, 949-8037, or WhatsApp us on 925-3261.
Email Talk Today at candw.ky. Let your voice be heard.
And now, back to Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we invite you to be a part of a discussion, it's always good to be not just cognizant, sensitive, informed, and from a perspective we can join hands and hearts. So, to Dr. Wedderburn, welcome back again. I mean, you were here all day.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Yes, and thanks to you and all the service clubs, but in particular your fellow Kiwanians, as you contribute to our community in a constructive way. Getting our people to be conscious of sometimes little things that, with a little bit kindness and consideration, we can make a meaningful, positive difference in the lives of others.
Thank you.
Now, as you shared earlier, prior to the break, like you, we're not experts in certain areas, and autism is not one of them, but we see in it increasingly more and more public discussion. We are able to talk from an informed perspective, but at the very least be aware. So as we look at autism awareness, we invite you to share with us and Kiwanis' sort of role and lead in this area.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks again for the welcome. So pretty much Kiwanis on a whole, our aim is generally the well-being of children. All right, so that is our main thrust. And today being World Autism Day and the month of April being World Autism Month, we will take a key role in helping persons with autism. All right, so we have this drive to spread the awareness of autism, pick up their diagnosis earlier, so these children can have a better life in the long run. Because when we work with them and treat them, they have a better prognosis.
And I think all of us want to feel a sense of belonging, to feel welcome, to feel invited, to feel accepted, appreciated, loved, nurtured. The things that we should, without even any effort on anybody's part, should just be the norm, recognizing that sadly that's not the case. And even if we are, attempts at fun, someone's feelings could be significantly hurt. But autism, maybe for many of us, we don't even realize it. And to your perspective and with the Kiwanis' sort of role, do you think it's something that we can, without training, look at and recognize, or does it take a certain level of skill set?
Well, in the definition of autism, it is a developmental disorder. So we can see that the child isn't developing along the right or the comparable strengths like other children. Yeah, but in the spectrum, we have from high functioning, that means they're almost normal, to very low function that they can't manage their basic needs. So in that respect, we might miss some of these diagnoses because they might just look normal, but if we're not trained to pick up these particular cues, then they might be missed. Yes, the children go to the pediatrician for their regular checkups, and at that point, we can see if they're developing or hitting their milestones at each year. And also in the schools, the teachers are made aware of autism, so they can pick up these little things early and tell the parents or the caregivers that, look here, there's something not really right. Get your child checked out.
Yeah. So those developmental milestones that you reference, we're seeing sometimes as individuals, and in particular as parents. Oh, little Johnny, he walked at 4 months old. That's even possible.
Right.
But his sister now, she's at 18 months.
We
would notice that. Seeing would talk. Are there, as a general practitioner, are there certain things that would transpire in a parent's mind that say, okay, we know the milestones, the expected range that this should happen, that would cause the parent to look at and go, okay, this is not occurring, whether it's speech, walking, movement, the way they interact or don't interact?
Yes. So at this time, I must share with you common signs of autism, right? So delayed language, communication, and social skills, right? That is the main one, because they don't really know how to talk to or interact with other peers, right? They might have repetitive behavior. You see them nodding, jerking up, right? Spinning, saying words repeatedly, right? And then that's not normal. And they rely on structural routines, right? So once something is broken, like a routine is broken, then they get upset.
Yeah.
Right? Another thing is they have unusual stimuli to things like light, sound, taste, smells, and textures. So you might be in a room and you see some of the autism reacting differently. It's because they heard something, but you can't detect what they heard. Yeah. Right? So they have heightened sense of sensation.
Right. And
different lights, maybe like strobe lights, will affect them, right? And we know about that. And certain smells can also affect them.
That's good to know, because just think of the family and there's a child, and at that point there may be some concern from parents in observing, but at that point they don't know, and all of a sudden there's a smell in the room that is faint or even undetectable by the others, and here's this child responding, not being aware as the rest of the occupants in the room. You may not understand how that child is responding.
Yes.
So how then does that sight, that sound, that smell impacting the child, and how do we help that child?
So once you have an inkling that there's something wrong, that then you go on now to get a proper diagnosis. And then this is a multidisciplinary approach. You have the child psychiatrist, psychologist, the therapist involved, right? And then they go through different tests, of course, with the help of the caregiver, because they're the ones who really see everything that's going on to bring forth a diagnosis. And then when they find out this diagnosis now, they're able to now work with the child and help them to perceive their sensations in a different way, and help them to express themselves, and help them to communicate with their peers, and which is very important.
Indeed. Isn't it interesting that in today's world, maybe for the last decades, that primary caregiver isn't the parent or extended family? This is someone that we have employed.
Yes.
Significant for all of us, but even for that person to have that training, that skill set, to be able to appreciate it. When we come back from the break, could we ask more about that and other issues relative to autism?
Yes, definitely.
Right. Listen, it's important that we understand and that we can respond from an informed perspective. Join us after the break.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what, though, no more dreaming. I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, and child, they now have Barbados. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drportercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
It's fresh. Fresh from the garden, it's fresh.
Don't have time to cook but don't want fast food? We can help. Grab lunch or dinner from Hurley's Eatery, a fresh culinary haven within our grocery store. Our eatery offers a diverse selection of delectable dishes, from oven-baked pizza, fresh paninis, burrito bowls, and sushi to savory rotisserie delights, all crafted with the utmost care and the finest ingredients, creating a convenient and incredibly delicious dining experience. Hurley's Eatery, where good food happens.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks very much to Dr. Wedderburn and his colleagues over at the Kiwanis Club as we talk about autism awareness, and today, but also for the month. Yes. If I might ask, as we were going into the break, I wanted to maybe ask something and then continue on what we were talking about. Usually, when we hear autism, we think children. I'm making in my mind the analogy with, say, ADHD and the like. Is it then that some adults, the 30s, 40s, 50s and onward, may be autistic but never been diagnosed? We never, as their colleagues, friends and family, understood. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is possible because we have a statement called high-functional autistic persons. So these persons, even though they're autistic, they perform normal in society, but it can be their autistic nature that drives them to be successful, right? Because look at somebody with OCD, right? I could say I have OCD too.
It's not a bad thing,
right? But autistic people do have OCD, but that can propel you to be well at your job, in certain factors, especially in the medical field, right? You're persistently doing something, over and over. You become perfect at it, right? And looking at my colleagues, I said, "Oh, a lot of people have OCD." Right? Yeah. But yes, we can have misdiagnosis, and it can be positive and negative,
And Dr. Bell, as you were referencing earlier now, the caregiver, and for my benefit in our discussion, I would like us to consider that there are, in many households in Cayman, people that we have employed, different skill level qualifications and expectations of them relative to the caregiving of the child. But even we as parents, one, understanding that many times that person is an employed member of the household and becomes, despite the pay, an extended member of the household.
Yes.
So to what extent should we ensure that not only if we have a diagnosed autistic child, but that we have that person who, like us as parents, are cognizant of some of these signs, as you referenced, to look for, and know then how to respond when there is that medical diagnosis.
That's true. Well, in a working society like this, where both mother and father are at work, the caregivers are rearing the child. And then with an autistic child, they need special treatment, special needs. So of course, definitely, that caregiver needs to know how to look after that child. And if the child is going into difficulty or throwing a tantrum, they need to know how to calm them down. Or if they're being, what's it called, overstimulated.
Right.
Because, as I said, these children, they perceive the world differently. So what looks normal to you is not normal to them.
Right.
And if this caregiver now can see that and help the child, that would be very good. Right. So I think, yes, caregivers, especially of autistic children, need to get these special training, awareness, or just be interested in looking after this child.
Right. And for my personal edification, I mean, if you were, encountering a child, to use, what you shared, so I'm on the same page, having a tantrum, so an autistic child, what do we do to, calm that child down? If they're going through this tantrum, what can we do?
Right. So the first thing we need to do, from my research, you need to remove that stimuli, whatever it is that is annoying them. Right. There have been talk about a safe room, right, or a sensory room. So this room, if it is available, like looking at your studio right now, a nice padded walls and floors, so you won't have sounds coming in to disturb them, right? Some like dull lights, right, and a nice area where they can relax, and then maybe some activity for them, right? So I know the Kiwanis Club, they have tried to do something with the sensory garden at Lighthouse, where they painted nice murals on the wall with activities for the children to do, and the garden. And there's also a wall inside the school. So and then this garden has tactile areas also where they can touch, and then the children can feel calm, and they can learn different senses, So, right, if they have more of this in the schools where they have autistic children, like a safe space, it would be good. So once they're so-called acting out, you can take them in there, guided, of course. You don't throw them in there. You take them there nicely, and then you throw them. You show them. They have like bouncy balls or punching bags. They can release their frustration. Mats, they can throw themselves down at soft cushion mats. They have something called a sensory wall. It feels soft and hard, and different things. And this is shown to be very beneficial for autistic children and also regular children. Because in the schools in the U.S., these children go into these call it sensory rooms, and they explore and they learn about their different sensations and how to control it, right? Which is very beneficial.
So then we would, I guess, if I'm listening to you correctly, it's generally accepted that an autistic child would have these sort of responses. You want to have a punching bag to help them. They may have a soft cushion and space that they can throw themselves. This is an expected normal response from some autistic children?
Yes.
Okay. I note that in the UK, I'm sure other jurisdictions have it, but emerging research starting to indicate that potentially because, and I'll call it this forever, that house arrest there, what was on since 2020, where's the quarantine and lockdown, just seems to be indicative of the stress and stresses that were placed on people. They recognize that in our schools from very early on, those formative years, the children are coming with developmental challenges, not hitting those milestones relative to self-care. They're acting out their aggression against teachers. All sorts of things are transpiring. To your view, to what extent is that perhaps worse for all of us in terms of you talked about social skills and interaction, and then the autistic child, is that being perhaps made worse?
Yes, definitely. The lockdown, everybody's in their own world, so there's not much interaction with another human being, and autism is pretty much like that, because when someone is autistic and they can't interact, they're in a little prison of their own. So they might see you and they want to ask you something, they don't know how to do it. They're afraid, and because of that, now they have little devices where they can correspond to you, like an iPad. When the iPad has little pictures in it, you touch each picture or prompt, it will tell you what you want. Or they travel with little cards, and they take with the card, like the card will say, "I'm hungry," or "I'm thirsty," and they can use these cue cards to interact with each other.
So very much like what we used to give to those with hearing or sight impairment,
right,
that they could communicate with those of us who could not understand what they wanted. They could say, "Hey, I need this, I want that, this, I'm lost, can you call?" Whichever.
Right, and because of the lockdown during COVID, so they have the psychologists and psychiatrists hard at work trying to reverse both adults, children, even the ones who are not autistic. We have all been impacted.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think as I listen to you, I'm reflecting on how important it is for us to be conscious of what is transpiring. We cannot rewind the hands of time, and the last years that have impacted us negatively. You said reverse it. Is there a way that we can now, thankfully we've seen some of the negative consequences of our decisions back then being heavily flawed, but can we undo those negative consequences?
Well, the thing with autism, as you say, it's a developmental delay. So once you catch it early and start working with the patient, you can improve their outcome. In some cases, they have reverted to be normal, right?
Okay.
Yeah, some cases. And in some cases, these individuals can go out in the society and operate as a normal person, right? Independent of a caregiver.
Which is what we want for all of us, right? Yes. And you reference catching it early. So how early is, hopefully the parents have access to, decent health care. And so as a medical practitioner, the parent is coming in and bringing the child for those normal checkups from age, birth to how early can we detect that?
Like most times we can see it at like the preschool age, 2 to 3 years old, right? That is the age that the children are supposed to interact with other kids, and you see if there's some difference there. That's why the teachers, it's very important that the teachers are aware of these delays, so they can pick it up and inform the parents.
Yeah. Despite the term I'm going to use, we look at some children and say, "Oh, well, he just spoiled, spoiled rotten or whatever." Is there a way to differentiate between that? We have words, brat, obnoxious or whatever. He's just like his mother, whatever the deal is. Those children that are spoiled rotten versus the child who has and is yet undiagnosed, medical condition like autism or like. How do we differentiate between the two?
Well, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But as I said before, there are the common signs, right? So you see a child, they go in a room and it's not what they're used to, a neat and tidy room, and then one thing is out of place, and they don't know what to do. They fall on the ground, right? Because they're just used to a particular thing,
right?
And so it's just subtle things like that you have to pick up. It's hard, right? But subtle things like that you have to pick up to know if the child is autistic.
And I guess in the early years of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you might be hard, but at 15, 17, when you've seen a pattern, you may recognize that little Johnny did this at 5, but now at 15. 5 minutes is 5 minutes, then it's 4 minutes, then it's 3 minutes, then it's 2 minutes. Oh, now it's time to go. For most of us, we can leave early. But for that person, it has to be precise.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing. We're welcome to more time, but I know you want to go back. For this month and for Kiwanis, what else do you want to tell us and how we can be a part of it and what else is going on?
So Kiwanis, we're all about also about fundraising to support these children, because this is a very expensive venture in terms of treating or managing an autistic child. So the parents can tell you, and I know for a fact that all insurances are not geared to treat autism on a whole, because in terms of the expensive therapies, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, right? It's not in their pocket, so it can be expensive. So what Kiwanis have been doing this month, the plan is to sell these ribbons at Foster's Airport on the 12th of April, and Foster's Cayman Bay on the 27th of April, $5 a piece. And then this will be going towards the kids at the Lighthouse School, so the parents can afford more treatment therapies, even food, because believe it or not, some of the children, they're very sensitive in terms of what they eat, right? And even the food, down to the food, is very important to them, right? So once we get sell these ribbons, right, $5 a piece, the donations will be made to the children. We're also going to be doing between the 11th and 30th of April, Light Up Cayman Bay, with special lights for autism awareness. And then we're imploring that once you have your special ribbon, you take a pic with the ribbon, or do some nice funny gesture and take a pic and email it to info@kiwanis.ky. So when we get all the pictures now, we can post it on our website, right? And then, it will make awareness in Cayman for autism more.
Yeah, and as you shared, whether it's that child or that undiagnosed adult, if we're all cognizant, from the parent to the caregiver to the teacher to the wider community, we can be respectful and responsive in a manner that helps them.
Yes, definitely.
And all this they say is not only equalizing but empowering, right? I want to thank you and the team, and throughout the month, we can be of value. The more we know, the more that we're informed, hopefully the better we can contribute.
Thanks a lot.
Dr. Wedderburn, thank you very, very much for sharing with us.
All right, thank you.
Well, Ms. Susan, guess what? It's commercial time. To our listeners, going to pause and take that break. When we come back, please join us.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's home loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, and child, they now have Barbados. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
You know what I love to do with my family? Go fishing. I can put the bait on and cast and reel the line all by myself. My mommy and daddy say when they were little, there were plenty more fish to catch, but now there are lots more people fishing, so it's harder to find them. That's why we have marine parks now. They set some areas aside so the fish there can have babies and grow bigger. Then they swim out to other areas where I can catch them. Having the marine parks means there will still be fish there when I'm grown up and fishing with a family of my own.
For more info, download the Cayman DOE app or visit doe.ky.
Hi, I'm Kathy Miller. Join me on Radio Cayman's Business Buzz every Tuesday and Thursday from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and the second and fourth Thursday of each month from 8:15 to 9 a.m.
If you're a business owner
or part of one, Business Buzz is your source for the latest initiatives, developments, and varied viewpoints from the local business landscape. Be part of the Business Buzz with me, Kathy Miller, every Tuesday and Thursday morning on Radio Cayman.
The Business Buzz. Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks again to Dr. Wedderburn and the good folks over at the Kiwanis Club, and to all of the service clubs who continue to make a positive impact in our society, all who volunteer, whether they're members of the PTAs or the church groups or the service clubs or just in a community trying to contribute. As we talked about autism, thank him for taking time out of his schedule and coming across and sharing with us. I see that to share that at 1 o'clock after the headline news, Martin and his fantastic son Phillip Richter will join us and we'll talk about things that are happening across the globe, and we'll share with you in that. But between now and then, we invite you to call 949-8037, 949-6990 as we have some open line. You can also WhatsApp call, message, or send a voice note. Hey, that's even possible these days, huh? Or WhatsApp number if you want to get on air by calling the WhatsApp 925-32621. You can talk about anything. And as I reflect on our conversations earlier, maybe it is indicative of a healthy society when we as citizens get involved. I'll give us an example, over the weekend and perhaps in recent weeks, but over the Easter weekend, as the police authority has announced, they're going to have a much more visible presence on our roads, trying to ensure that not only the roads are safe, but we as the drivers are abiding by the laws. Our cars are properly licensed and insured and the like. And there are instances where there may be some things transpiring, but we as people should do our very best individually so that there's a collective impact in a positive way. If we are consciously driving a vehicle that we know is on roadworthy, hasn't been licensed or insured, or we ourselves are without a license, we don't have a valid license, either because we don't have one or it's expired, maybe it's a financial consideration. Is it like what we do at the banks where we say, falling on hard times and what can we do about our loans? Well, sometimes you want something, but you can't afford it. Well, if you can't afford to license your car, Does that mean that you should be allowed to drive it unlicensed, uninsured? Some would say yes. Others would say, well, no. And is that any different than if you went to the grocery store and you picked up your cart full of the things you wanted, but you went to the checkout and the cashier says, okay, that's $100, and you don't. Maybe you have 50. Would you and should you be allowed to take the other goods without paying for it? What about your utilities, whether it's the electric or the water or, your internet service? Sometimes we want things, but we can only, afford some things. Now, it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, or does it? Well, 949-837, 949-6990. Give us a shout. With that in mind, as we invite you to look at our communities, I observe the policing approach in terms of how do we make our roads safer? Do we need to have, as they did, increase police presence with the roadblocks and stopping the vehicles that weren't expired? Yesterday, Officers Watts and Tahal, and as I interacted with them, you see, many of us were at the beach, we were fishing, some of us were in our yard, some of us were relaxing. It was relatively hot despite that gentle breeze in some parts, and they were there in their full uniform, working. And at what point is it that we are able to ensure that as we deploy the technology, that it works for us as we need, as we are ordinary people, that we are sensible about our endeavors and compliant with the requisite legislation? Now, interestingly enough, and as an aside, I've heard and some have shown me comments being posted on this social media sphere where, the Honda Fits are out. Well, is it the car or is it the driver? And an interesting discussion with a couple of others. Someone said if you took 50% of all cars off the road, but the remaining 50% are drivers who are inconsiderate, who do not drive with due care and attention, will the driving and the conditions of the road be any safer? And if you remove one type of vehicle, but the majority of the drivers in other vehicles, so for instance the Honda Fit is taken off, would that make the road safer? Both questions would be a resounding no. Now, if the drivers of a particular car all seem to drive a certain way, well, that car may, when you see it, be looked at in a negative light. It wasn't long ago when a similar vehicle had a similar perception because seemingly, they were involved with other errant behaviors, to the point where allegedly some insurance companies refused to insure those vehicles. Now, is it the car or is it the person? Again, some would say yes to both. Well, comes down to what the society is willing to accept, what its inculcated ethos and its norm. Like Dr. Wedderburn was sharing relative to autism, the more we understand about it, the more we can respond in an appropriate way to recognize that is the stimuli, maybe the loud noise or the bright light or the strobing light or perhaps the smell or other things that is causing that person to respond that way. Or maybe something that we don't quite recognize then, but do we know how to assist in a positive way? And if we all are knowledgeable, maybe we will be in a better position. But in particular, if we are the parent, the teacher, the primary caregiver, perhaps we should be better equipped. Is that the same thing with our roads? Our policing officers who are on sort of the ground and doing the work. We expect them to know, and as they do, they're able to respond in that professional way. Kudos to them for acting. I've always believed that police officers have to be some of your best trained, skilled, educated, knowledgeable, intelligent people in the society, because just even at a traffic operation, that officers managing the flow of traffic may have to serve as a mediator, perhaps find ways through counseling and psychological endeavors to minimize and de-escalate a situation, just perhaps because of the way that person, who may or may not be the driver or the passenger, is responding, not necessarily because of some drug or illicit drug use, but just the stimuli, the environment. Doesn't mean that the person is responding correctly. It just means that if the officer is cognizant, in a safe, sensible way, making sure everybody is safe, but also finding ways to, as we're told, to de-escalate. But then it also sometimes may have to be a medic, because it's something has happened. It could just be a medical emergency. It could be a consequence of an injury as a result of an accident. So think about it. That importance of our police officers, being the best skilled people in our society. Many of us in many societies adopt that if it's a low wage job, then therefore it's low skill. Well, is it low skill because of the wage, or is it because of the wage they get low skill? Well, when we come back, father and son duo will join us. We get a chance to talk about a number of things, including the situation in Ukraine, as we invite you to join us right after the news.
Radio station. Radio Cayman is the voice of the Cayman Islands.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines.
Local, regional, international news.
Registration for the annual Deputy Governor's 5K Challenge Run Walk is now open. This annual event, celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, brings together the civil service, private sector and fitness community in the interest of physical wellness and community development. The initiative, which is in its 9th staging, will be held on Grand Cayman and the Sister Islands on Sunday, April 14th on Cayman Brac, Sunday, April 21st on Little Cayman, and Sunday, April 28th on Grand Cayman. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. A child has died and 2 others have been seriously wounded in a shooting at a school in Finland, police say. Police said all 3 victims were 12 and that a suspect also aged 12 had fled but was later detained. Parents told Finnish media that the shooting had taken place in a classroom at Vertola School in Vantaa, in the north of the capital, Helsinki. And the last surviving crew member from the USS Arizona battleship, which was sunk in the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, has died. He was 102. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
Born in Watering Place, Cayman Brac, on the 8th day of July 1936. Captain Fred Elman Scott was the 5th child born to Nalio and Vera Scott. Captain Scott was a quiet-natured child who liked going on the bluff with his grandfather Oscar Brown, swimming every Saturday evening and playing cricket down where Miss Alame's house sits now. He was very studious at Creek Elementary School and did very well under the tutelage of his favorite teacher, Miss Isley Connolly, MBE. Following the tragic death of his father at sea, at age 14, he left school to work with Arnold Foster to support his family. In 1953, he joined his first ship, the Beretta, a local cargo vessel, signing on as deck boy, working his way up to boatswain. From 1953 until 2006, some 52 years, Captain Scott made his living working off the seas.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Sometimes if you recognize a society and you look beyond the pages, you'll get to see history in the making. And Tamara Richter, as you look to your right, man, you got a handsome young fella. Ought to make you proud, man.
It does me very proud, actually, and as usual, Dwayne, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
As usual, thank you so much for the invitation. And yes, Phil does me very proud, and I'm very happy how it works out for him and how things are happening.
Good stuff, man. Well, proud father, Phil, man.
Yeah,
Be good.
And here I am, a proud son, supporting my father for a mission he is very dear to his heart, helping the Ukraine people.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting that from two perspectives, three. If you look at the Cayman context relative to our seafarers travel the globe, they got to see much as the world, over the last, let's say, century, for instance. But then the different nationalities who live here, we interact, we marry, and they become our friends and family. But even in the absence of that, the importance of a citizen seeing something transpiring elsewhere and wanting to make a meaningful impact. Martin, you fit all those categories, man.
Well, thank you. Guilty, Well, it is what it is. I've looked at this Ukraine refugee crisis, and don't just confine it to Ukraine. It could have been Poland. It could have been one of the Baltic states. It could have been Hungary. Oh well, Hungary don't have to invade it. They're already waiting for it. But keep this in mind. You're talking about Europe. And keep in mind that these rockets, what they're firing back and forwards, could be Paris tomorrow or in London. So don't think now that Western Europe lives on a little island or a little enclosed area. And the same is also for Cayman. You're seeing that obviously Cuba is the closest ally of Russia. And anybody being to Havana sees how big the Russian embassy is for one another reason.
Yeah. And what's interesting, as I listen to you, we watch the news, or we read it, or we get it, and phrases like the geopolitical landscape. We might think that we're here and that thing is happening there, that we're removed from it. And then the more we look, well, perhaps because of the price of oil, our cost of living is affected. Perhaps because of food supply, maybe not just the cost but availability. So, Philip, it isn't that we are twice removed.
No. I mean, I would say these days, definitely we're more connected globally, global trade and whatnot. For example, when I was shipping goods out of Europe at the start of the Ukraine war, my shipping prices almost tripled, right? Thankfully, it's gone down a little bit, but still, it definitely plays an impact on us all. What else can I say? It seems if you just focus on the media, it seems, I would say the media definitely has their viewpoint and their agenda that they want to portray against the war. Like if you ask anyone who works at the Telegraph, they'll convince you that Russia is losing and Ukraine's, any day now, Ukraine's going to topple. I would say the media definitely makes things look like, oh, it's just this section of the world, don't worry about it. But actually, it does impact us all.
If I may ask on that point, 4 people. So it wasn't, I wouldn't have had a chance, and I just quickly asked as we were seated, Ukraine, what's happening? And they're like, is the war still going on? What's going on? Because it's all focused on Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
And I asked that based on what you just said. We not only get a particular view from the media, depending on its slant, but sometimes we don't get any view at all. So what is happening in the Ukraine? When it first started, was it 2 years and change now?
Well,
it was about 2 years and change now. Well, going back, Ukraine is one of the 5th biggest exporters of corn worldwide, also for sunflower oil. They have about numerous food products which are leading in the world. So just can you believe in this catastrophe if this doesn't exist anymore? What will do to our food chain?
Yeah.
Now, going forward, Ukraine now, obviously, so many dominations go into the Ukraine and says, well, will it reach the final destination? Who will get it? What will happen to it? You hear so many negative reports about it, and that's the reason I decided from the last donation what we did, that I physically will hand deliver it. And that was very surprising for everybody involved, even for myself. And they said, are you coming? I said, yeah, I will be there. I want to really physically see and make sure that this would be fundraised, because obviously anybody who gives out money for a donation would like to know that it reaches the final destination and doesn't get stopped somewhere between.
And not only that, but if it's, you donating to buy watermelons, that you're buying watermelons, you're not using it to buy banana boats, for instance.
That is correct. Obviously, from my point of view, I have 2 persons. And after this point, I have to also have to say thank you to Rotary Sunrise, President Andrea, and also President Paul from Rotary Central, who really heavily support the cause. I really have to say so. Without them, I could never done it or do what I'm doing. And I have two persons there who really who look over the books or looks over the invoices. Obviously not the drop-off points, because obviously they're not public. But they look into it and they can see what was bought and how much is needed when it comes to it. It's also very easy to control it and check it. But going back to Ukraine, they were asking me, so you're coming, so you want to if we pick you up in Warsaw with a four-wheel drive and drive you over. I said, no, I said, this is too flashy for me. I don't need that, So they said, well, how are you going to do it then? He said, you're a little older guy already. I said, yeah, that's fine. So and they asked me when I'm coming. I said, well, I'm going to be in this kind of days. Obviously, when you go in these areas, you never say a date, you never say a time, you never say a name, you say nothing. Approximately there, we will meet up, and we meet up sooner or later. And I physically walked over the border. And that was, by the end of the day, I said, okay, that is the way to do it. Because on the borderline, you're waiting 2-3 hours to cross the border. Either way, it's unreal. So I physically walked over it. What I did not realize, that Ukraine is 2 hours behind, in front of us, the time frame, the time zones, and I didn't come in late afternoon. I came more or less middle of the night. And really, when I walked over the border, it was like in Hitchcock movies. It was pouring rain. There was some neon signs flashing for some liquor stores. There was one bar where they offered the schnapps in small wine glasses. And some suspicious characters floating around at the border, as usual. As I'm saying, oh my God, that's the right spot to be right now. And
Phillip, you missed it. I did miss it.
So the guy said, so obviously they said, oh yeah, a tourist, we're going to get him now. Yeah. I said, oh, that's no problem for me. I just sleep here in the corner somewhere and wait until the morning hours. But I knew exactly that this car there wants to go in the next city, wants to go back again. So obviously we hustled for 10 minutes, obviously with translator, and then obviously I moved on. And I have to say, it was very safe for that point of view, that nobody ever hustled you, nobody talked to you, nobody looked after their own business. In certain areas it was like normal life, and in certain areas it was a little bit more hectic. And obviously one thing is if you hear day and night the siren, the air defense siren going, that is something, it's eerie at the beginning. I don't know if you can listen to it.
So this is... All right.
So this you hear it constantly. And the first time when I heard it, there's a little app which tells you where the next bunker is.
Okay.
And you have the choice then to run or drink or finish your beer, either way.
Wait, there's an app for Ukrainian citizens to dodge bombs. And they
not dodge bombs, where the next bunker is. Where's the next refugee? Where can you go? Subway, the bigger cities, they have the subway stations where you can go. And what really blew my mind is children have to stay underground until the clearance comes. And the clearance sometimes comes 6, 7, 8 hours later. And up to then they have to stay in cellars. Some of them were very nice, really to say, there was everything there, from generator to a fridge. And there was some of them was really holes, just physically cellar, deep down, physically holes with a little generator floating, no air, everything sticky. And they were teaching down there, they were sitting down there. There was nobody complaining that I want some water, I want some Coca-Cola, or nothing. Disciplined, sitting, teaching, that's life, that's what we have to do, that's what we have to move forward.
Right. So that air raid siren, if someone just joined us, that's what they hear in Ukraine, constantly.
Constantly. So, for hours this goes on, this series. Right.
So to what extent do you know, so sort of pre-warning? Is it, we're expecting this thing, is it imminent? Is it maybe a 5-minute, 2 hour?
For me, I have to say, I did not see any incoming, either drones or anything similar. I did not see anything. Had they been shot down before? I do not know. There were some areas nearby where I passed by which had been bombed out. I did not go there. I didn't want to see it. What are they going to see? So, I've been through catastrophes before. So I'm not really there to look after bombed out houses.
So when you heard the sirens, the area siren, then you had to find the nearest bunker. And
Yeah, people did. I'm not really a runner. I finished my beer and I said, look, there's going to be kismet. And really, I mean, that's because it's such a, and also it depends which areas you are. Most of the locals don't even recognize it anymore.
They become desensitized to it.
Yeah,
it's just constant.
It's just constant. If you stay in some of the hotels, obviously they wake you up in the middle of the night and they bring you down. Some of them have under the hotels they have some cellars which they equipped.
Philip,
I don't know what to say. I think last time you had shown me the funds raised last year was used to get rid of mines.
Mines,
yeah, anti-mine equipment. I guess it really shows how privileged we are, because what sirens are there? We don't deal with sirens. We don't deal with air raids. We don't deal with separatists. We don't deal with any of the conflicts that happen in modern day Ukraine, and we just sit here in paradise. But at least I would say thankfully we're in a position that we can help anytime that there's been an issue locally and regionally and globally. The Cayman public has definitely stepped up.
But as I listen to you, I'm thinking that it's great that we have that charitable, kind, not just loving but responsive, whether something locally, something regionally, or internationally. But then the word that immediately comes to mind is being desensitized, right? So thankfully there are no sort of air raid sirens and the like that we're hearing. But the police, fire, ambulance, those sirens we hear frequently.
Yes.
And I wonder if not that it's the same gravity by any nature, right? No stretch of the money. But if we've become so accustomed to hearing that, whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the day, when it comes to crime and other sort of social errant behavior, we're accepting of that.
It reminds me of the frog boiling in water, slowly but surely. Because if overnight we hear all these sirens, everyone's going to know something's up. But slowly but surely, then it will just be part of the normal.
So Martin, a couple of things. If I may just revisit what you shared. They're the children in these bunkers, these cellars. They're attending the school. That's their norm. There are immediate consequences for their childhood, their development, their socialization, but also their quality of life.
Well, that is something that these people and these parents and the children, for them, things have a different meaning. It's not the internet. It's not the Apple phone. It's a completely different strategy behind it, and obviously people live with it. And anybody I talked to and who wanted to talk to me, I did not see anybody being disturbed, being whatever. I mean, maybe later on in life that will be, But given what they have to go through, and obviously the most important thing, they're safe.
Yeah. So sorry, Philip.
Could you speak? We hear a lot on the news about foreign aid coming into Ukraine. Could you speak to anything that you've seen?
No, I'll tell you what we are doing. Okay, and we can just from there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we are providing material to make stretchers, medical field stretchers, which are mobile and can be rolled up. At the beginning, I didn't think very much about it, and then they explained a little bit to me and a little bit more, and now I'm completely into it. And this is very much needed. It's one of the biggest life-saving devices, actually, what they're having on the front. Because the stretchers, they're mobile, they're soft. That means they can go in the trenches. A hard stretcher with poles on it, they cannot go because everything is bent. That is one thing. He said also, they said, oh, wow, that's amazing. Then I said, well, and then he said, yeah, and also if somebody is in the field lying around it and we cannot harvest them, we throw them to them. We put it on a rope and we throw it to them, and they physically can tie themselves onto it.
You can pull them in.
And pull them in. So really things, I said this, and again I said, if there's anything what you can choose from, from anything what we should donate to, he said, Martin, he said, if there's anything what you could do for us, please go ahead and send us this material to make stretchers. Now, I didn't just send the stretchers there. I asked them who's going to do it, because obviously I could buy them maybe cheap in US or whatever, but the goal was also to employ local ladies there or local persons. And we went, and then they brought me down after 3 days of waiting. They did not call me, nothing. There was just a chicken because they wanted to make sure I'm not giving them out information out. They brought me to an area, and there was a room full of ladies, all in the middle age. Some of them, their husbands are dead. Some of them are prisoners of war. There were 20 ladies, and they're doing nothing else than sewing for the army. Mm-hmm. And they were also doing the stretchers there, And at that time also I could see the delivery slips of the material, what we sent, the claps, so everything, whatever we sent, I could identify it, and I had my receipts with me, such as to see the numbers and everything. So I was very much extremely surprised. And then I had a liaison officer with me. The liaison officer was a former Irish finance man, a Ukraine finance man in an island. So really, he said, But anyway, he was in charge of the supply line for these particular items. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it and said, well, listen, if you order enough, we can cut the price for the ladies to do the stretchers. I said, no, why want to do that? We said, well, they get 10 euros for one. I said, leave it at 10 euros. Why you want to cut them down? Leave them, let them pay them 10 euros so they can stay alive, and they can survive, and they can buy their food, because food is not cheap there.
Right. So, unless you want to fill out on that, yeah.
Honestly, one thing I hear when my father tells me these stories, I gotta hand it to the Ukrainian people for being so resilient. I mean, a lot of people did leave the country, yes, but for those who stayed and refused to leave and are just building up the defenses and bringing back local manufacturing to help the soldiers, I gotta take my hat off. It's very commendable.
Well, with what Phillip shared, and as we're talking to Martin Richter and his son Phillip Richter in the Ukraine, and we're watching international news, it may seem for some that this is not a continuing, can I call it war? You've in the areas you.
I would say that's you can attribute it to me.
Yeah, but I would use it too. But we're not in Russia, so. A strategic military operation.
No, not anymore. He changed his mind. Putin changed his mind, and it just
Yeah. So with that in mind, and the areas that you've seen, other than what you described, people are moving about somewhat freely. Is there a semblance of normalcy? What is it like?
Yes, I would say there's a great normal. People going to work in the morning. You still see a taxi going. You see a train going. You still can train, if you wanted to, take a train from Vienna to Kiev, which I wouldn't take because it's just too easy for target. But anyway, you still can take it. You still can take taxis. I mean, there is, especially up to Kiev, more or less the life is pretty normal. Also beyond Kiev, then obviously it's got a little bit dense then. Also beyond that, then you see it's got a little bit dense. But up to Kiev, I think.
Right.
The people just living their life, and keep in mind they are all full employment. They are not refugees because of economy reasons or war reasons.
Right. But as you look at the country itself, is the conflict then more prominent in some areas? Is it constant conflict, or is it just the potential for it?
No, the front goes approximately over 1,000 kilometers long is the front. And this is unreal. Can you believe it? From here to past Miami is one front. Okay, they're trying to defend it. This is the logistic behind it. It's unbelievable. And I talked to the AG from Rotary, to Will Pano. He was actually a war correspondent. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And actually, I brought him together with the AG from Ukraine, and they might do a project together on a mobile dental unit.
Okay.
Because it's something they said to me, listen, if you can get over Rotary there, a mobile dental unit which just drives up the front, and dental, it is unbelievable. We have no dentists. We cannot move them from A to B.
Yeah.
This is a disaster. But anyway, just beside the point.
But this is where I think the word desensitized keep comes to mind. And then the media presents it, Phillip, as you've referenced, in a certain way, and the rest of us in all parts of the world, life is normal. We just go about our merry way. We perhaps not necessarily understand, but I've heard about the cost, to our goods, the delay in the supply, the availability. But there's also a human cost, not just the ultimate cost in terms of loss of life, but there's another element to the human factor. To what extent did you see that?
I saw it at the beginning. Obviously, when this war, this tragedy started, I did not donate anything because obviously in every catastrophe there's too much donated. Everybody was overwhelmed, and obviously in the Ukraine itself, they told me, listen, we didn't know what to do. I mean, there was tons and tons of food products coming. We didn't know how to dispense them, how to disperse them, whatever come to it. So actually, I didn't do that. But what I did in Vienna, that was the first refugee arrival point coming to Europe, to Western Europe, and I worked at the railway station receiving refugees. And I said at the beginning, I said, that's an easy one, a little fun, they'll give out a little coffee, I never worked in my life so hard. I cannot recall that. People generally, I don't know, I worked a 6-hour shift. I was completely finished afterwards. I served at least thick thousands of coffees and whatever came to it, whatever I had to do. I had one guy just bringing water to fill up the containers again for the coffee. So I was really, I worked so, and I got a first blink and the first impact what's actually going on. Because obviously whatever you write and whatever was written in the papers, it's all this, whatever they want to write, they want to know, but it's not really the actual things are happening. And it was so wild that I had to go and find different thoughts or something else because it was so intensive. And I said to myself, look, you're serving here approximately now 600, 800, 1,200, close, 2,000 people in 6 hours. It's unreal, it's unbelievable. People are very disciplined, whatever I thought. I said, look, on 5% of these people now lost their father, their son, their uncle, or whatever, 5%. Out of these people who I'm serving now, they even don't know about it because nobody has cellular phone, and they're not switching it on because of the location services. And it really was a bummer for me to say, well, who of these 1,000 people, who lost now their father? Or who lost their uncle or the brother? Or the sister. Keep in mind, they have 5,000 soldiers, female soldiers on the front. Some of the best sharpshooters are females. 5,000, and then total of 40,000 females in the military integrated. Nobody talks about it either.
And those are the two things I wanted to ask. One, given how the international media is presenting it, right? What do you see? What is the reality? Can we trust what we're seeing in the international media? Is that accurate?
I do think that some media just copy from the next one and just change some wording in it. I did see a lot of media coverage in the Ukraine, as you don't see any tourists, but you see a huge amount of media personnel from different, but mostly not from the Western world, and rather from Poland, from Moldavia, from this area. From regional, this I saw a fair amount of it. And if you want to hear the real truth, I don't know. I guess you have to read 5 papers to figure out what it is. Obviously, when they're saying they lost a village or they lost a location or whatever, that is somehow you can believe in. And I did ask them, I said, look, Martin, for them to win 5 square miles, the Russians 5 square miles to occupy, cost about 100,000 men, approximately plus. So keep this in mind, now make the mathematics. And so from that point of view, yes, it's going to be a long, drawn-out war. There's no question about it. And obviously, I see the way that I don't want my grandchildren to learn Russian in school. But rather keep the world democratic and keep it like it is. And that's the reason we're doing this fundraiser.
That's the other thing. I mean, we are here, we can see some of the implications, but I appreciate you reminding us of the human factor, the human cost. What can we do? The stretchers and the appeal you did last time, but what are you asking of the Cayman public as we conclude the discussion?
Right now, we're still doing the stretchers again because they just sent me some messages and said, listen, please continue. We're in the middle of the 3rd or 4th fundraiser right now. I really would appreciate if somebody's interested, to donate to the fundraiser. I give to Dwayne my contact details. You're happy to do so, and this is mostly appreciated. Now, obviously, there's so many causes where you can donate to. Don't get me wrong, and everything is most appreciated. obviously, if I donate to something or if I do something, I really would like to see where is it going, how is it going there, how does it affect, and that is the reason behind it, why I'm doing it personally.
Mr. Phillip.
Lost for words. It's
yeah.
To your point about being desensitized, and you said something earlier that is quite interesting. But people lost track of the Ukraine war because of the Israel-Palestine conflict, and it's sad that we look at war like, oh, it's not new, it's not fresh anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's sad, but thankfully we have beautiful radio hosts like yourself that invite cool guests on, like ourselves, to bring these conversations back to the forefront and know that, you know, maybe you see these things on your phone and on your TV and whatnot, but actually you can, no matter where you are, you can make that difference.
And this is where I'm mindful, and hopefully we can have other discussions where I enjoy privately chatting with you, but invite you publicly. Whatever that platform is that our younger people looking at, you know, I heard about the incident in Finland, not from any of the established media sources, but from a student. On the phone, the thing pops up and there's a discussion. So it's happening instantaneously, get it from their, you know, their little platforms, right? So I said to share that to what extent are we in the established media responsible, accurate, and timely, and then secondly, we in the space we occupy are sensitive to what is happening. These are wars. This is not a reality TV with some moron portraying some ignorant thing.
Yeah.
This is a life that is being lost and lives that have been impacted. I mean, and if that offends people,
it's not only that, but also the impact what it can have to Western Europe.
Yeah,
and not just Western Europe.
Yeah.
Western Europe would be like phase one, but it impacts us all.
And just generally, you have in Palestine and Israel, you know, significant cause. People may call it genocide. They may ascribe lives are being lost. Things are happening. In Western Europe, you're having this global impact, and yet we're going about our lives like we have the ostrich syndrome.
Well, I see where you're going, but I will say though, I mean, we have bills. You know, we have our own things going on. It's not like we can dedicate all our lives to look. I mean, geez and peas. This is hard to say, but I would say we now, especially in the year 2024, with all the technology at hand, we can choose what we do with our time. So, for example, raising funds for the Ukraine with technology, I can be in Cayman and dedicate time to raising funds for this. I don't need to constantly watch the news and feel like, oh, what can I do? I can use the resources I have, and everyone has, and do that. So I would say definitely because of globalization, you can help wherever you are.
So there is that monetary impact, but then to what extent are we on the global landscape looking at it and finding ways for us to, what they say, make peace not war, to become more integrated and united as opposed to this growing divided world?
That too, that's a conversation for another time, because division is profitable.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, for example, you want to talk about information on the Ukraine war. The Telegraph will convince you that Russia's going to win. But was it Hungary's president or prime minister, whatever, he'll tell you that Russia's, Telegraph will tell you Russia's going to lose. And Viktor Orban will tell you that Russia's going to win. And it's like,
but
where both of you guys getting your information from, and where can the public access it to see it from their view rather than just hear from institutions that have their agendas?
I think, Martin, to your point, and perhaps we'll conclude here, trust but verify.
Yes.
You need to read 4, 5, 10 different sources to get a picture. And are we doing, our, not just our individual selves, but our global selves a disservice?
I would say that comes to the role of the press, because as I alluded to earlier, we all have our lives. We have bills, children, things like that. But that's why people tune into your show and the 6 o'clock news and the repeat at 7, because that's where the accurate information is. That's where people trust your institution, and people will then tune in to get that information. But if that institution is corrupted, then you have, I guess, violated the trust of those people, giving them false information.
Well, look at the Cayman context, and I can see us as that lighthouse, that beacon. with all the different nationalities that are here. We can get from them firsthand what they are hearing from their families in whatever part of the world, whatever continent. But then, Martin, to your point, we can make a contribution, financial or otherwise. So through you, we can help, whether with the stretchers otherwise. So the appeal is there.
Your please is most appreciated, and thank you. And obviously, we couldn't do it with the generous help of the public. Otherwise, it would not be possible. And there are many ways, or many projects which are going on to donate. And coming to the point, I personally don't read the news anymore. I stopped reading them because what does it mean to me that another village was whatever and another bomb fell into A, B, C? It means nothing to me. I'm not there. I'm not related to anybody. It's sad, it's sad, but obviously life goes on. I mean, I'm just saying, you just get confused reading every day the newspaper and wondering, what is the crisis? And you never hear the truth anyway. You don't hear if there's really not enough ammunition, and they don't hear if there's really this or that. Nobody's going to open up their cards and give you the details. So in order to avoid the stress myself, I just cut it out a little bit and let it go. I just know what is needed. I talk to 2 or 3 people, or sometimes how is it going, and leave it as it is.
And I want to say one thing about the stretchers. When you hear a lot of about charities, they say, "Oh, we're raising funds for supplies." It's quite vague, "Oh, we're just gonna get help, we're gonna get aid," but it's vague. What does that mean? With stretchers, it's like we're raising money for stretchers. It's very easy to see,
and it helps and it saves lives and brings that one from the field.
Exactly, and that's what all the funds going to you, Dad, are going to stretchers.
Well, thank you for that. And we've seen, as you shared, not just the accounting aspect and accountability, but you've made it, individually a first-hand account to go and see and to come back and share. So thank you for that.
Well, seeing is believing, That's a problem in these times of the world, At these times, people talk a lot, and don't find a solution to it.
All right. Anyway. Well, gents, thanks very much. Thanks for being the duo. And you know what? You raise them good, they do right. Phillip, you're making us proud, man.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
All right,
I appreciate it. All the best.
Keep us posted.
I will,
we'll remind people, hopefully, the need to be your brother's keeper. This is the way we can.
Indeed.
All right, to listeners, thanks for being not only prayerful and purposeful, but put in your actions into something meaningful. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
As a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. I go in flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, and child, they now have Barbados. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Hey there, Cayman. Have a few minutes to spare? Your Ministry for Housing has just launched the public survey for the Cayman Islands Housing Policy and Strategic Plan. We are all about making our island home even better. We need your help. It's your thoughts and ideas that will shape our housing policies for the future. Your voice matters, and it's easy to get involved. Just visit cihousingplan.org and let your voice be heard. Plus, you could catch some cool gift cards just for sharing your ideas. Don't miss out. Open through April 16th. Head to cihousingplan.org or go to the ministry's Facebook, Instagram, X, or LinkedIn now and be a part of the conversation. Your input matters more than you know. Let's make Cayman's housing future brighter. Together, your voice, your future. Take the survey today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. And a community such as this that not only have empowered, engaged citizens who are not true only their experience and expertise, but are willing to bring it to the fore. So, from our assistance, the efforts in Ukraine, to what we're doing in our schools relative to nutrition for our students, to our community dietitian over at HSA, Ms. Tamara, Whorms-Riley. Thank you very much. Food is important, huh?
Oh, yes, it is.
Not just fuel for the body, but it fuels the mind.
Fuels the mind, yes, it does.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. And
yes, I'm happy to be here.
We keep hearing sometimes that you are what you eat, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing increasingly the impact of foods on many people.
Mm-hmm.
Some will get jittery as a result of something. Some, in the absence of some meal, would be noticeably lethargic, almost in a sense of a slumber.
Yes.
But yet, we go and we grow and we don't seem to eat and be cognizant, at least as adults anyway.
Yes, that is true. That is so true.
Is there a sort of a public standard for food within the Cayman Islands? And is it just across the board, or is it just in some schools?
All right, so we do have the Cayman Islands public school standards for school meals provision.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is across the government schools, but it's also available for private schools to replicate and use in their schools as desired. But it was initially formulated for government schools. Yes.
Okay. So is that all the schools, high, middle, primary, preschool, all the government schools?
Right. So it's for all the government schools from preschool, as in the reception, all the way up to 12th grade.
What was the impetus for it? I mean, it would sound like a simple thing, but sometimes even as adults, but even as responsible parents, we're grabbing and going, and we're giving little Johnny, little Susie something without. So what caused us to want to develop a standard for public schools?
All right, so the important reason for wanting to develop these standards is to make sure that, one, calories that are being provided throughout the schools are set to a certain limit, while also trying to improve the nutritive value of the foods that are being provided. So we do want the children to have a certain limit on the amount of calories that they consume while still getting the maximum throughout the day. Because when you don't have something like a school standards or school food standards, what you have is foods being provided and shared, and what happens is that it's more like eyeballing the quantity versus having a what we call a relative dietary allowance, which lead to the recommendations that is provided. So what we usually explain is that there are recommendations for calories for children and adults, and so we don't want for the canteen managers or the school concessionaires just to eyeball the quantity that is being provided when we know that, for instance, we'll just use 0 as a number. From 0 to 4 years old, there's a certain amount of calorie limitation, and from that age beyond, there's a certain amount of limitation on the calories that you would need to consume.
So that's the why. But how were the standards developing? How do we go about that?
All right, so the standards were developed from first and foremost, we looked at the USDA guidelines for their school standards, which is an extensive document, and it's exceptional, may I add. So they have a exceptional guideline that is around 164 pages that we actually went through, and from there they also have their own standards that they use in their schools. And when we went through that, we realized that that's something that could be adopted and changed and used for our local schools in the Cayman Islands. And so that from there is where we actually developed the guidelines. There's also a 54-page document that was published by the USDA on their Federal Register that speaks to the rules and regulations for meals that are provided in schools. And so from there, we also extrapolated data and used those.
Okay. Now, I remember hearing about a food pyramid. And nowadays, what's a food plate? There's something different.
Yes.
Tell me about each one. Want us to take a break, Miss Susan? All right, so when we come, see that? I can hear her. I pay attention. As we come back, community dietitian over at HSA, Ms. Tamara Whorms-Riley. I want to ask about the pyramid plate and which one is it now? What was it before? And help us.
Yes.
And then, can we get some food? All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, and child, they now have Barbados. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's home loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymanational.com today.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Hey Cayman, this is Iliane Powery, your Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2023. Do you want the opportunity to help shape the future of youth and sports in the Cayman Islands? All you have to do is complete the National Youth and Sports Survey found at gov.ky/YSP. This is your chance to make a lasting impact on our community. Have your say today, Cayman, at gov.ky/YSP.
This announcement is brought to you by the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Heritage.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks, for this continued partnership with the Health Services Authority and now with their community dietitian, Ms. Tamara Whorms-Riley, for joining with us. It is hopefully through an education and an awareness. That knowledge not just empowers, not just equalizes, but gives us a sense of perspective so that we can do things that are from an informed perspective, but also helps us to continue healthy practices, maybe discontinue some, perhaps mitigate some of the things. I don't know about many people, but sometimes we don't stop to eat. When we do, we grab it and go. We try eating some fritters and a piece of fried fish on the go. I mean, you're supposed to sit and eat it, but you grab it. That's probably good to what some of us do because we need that food.
Yeah.
But in our schools, if we can do more, as you shared, maybe we'll be better. I was asking about the food pyramid and the food plate, and as we continue discussion, thank you for sharing with us, because maybe as parents, we can help, and we can realize that we don't even know as much as we would like to know, but even less than what we actually think we know. So there was once a food pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Egyptians didn't make it, but anyway. And now is that the thing that we go by now? And if not, what is the thing?
All right, so we go by the American guidelines. Well, we sometimes call the British one as well, but mostly American guidelines where there's a food plate. Yes, there used to be the food pyramid, but that has slowly been taken away so that we can actually understand more as it relates to how our plate should be organized. Because yes, you can use a pyramid, but using a plate actually gives you a physical idea as to what, in terms of the plate, should be outlined and how it should look. When you looked on the pyramid, you would see the grains, the vegetables, the fruits going up the pyramid, and yes, at the top, the smallest area would be the fats and oils. But when you look on the plate, you will see how much vegetables you would need to be outlined on the plate, because you would have the four sides as they would want you to look at it, and then you would have where the fruits could go, where the grains could go, and how much of the plate that the protein would take up. So I think on a personal level, I do think it's better for visibility and also for understanding that they now have moved over to the guidelines using the plate.
Okay. If I might ask, there are some people, maybe it's a food fad, maybe it's a preference. Some people will not eat, this particular thing with that. So their protein, they won't eat it with a carb, or they will only have the carbs with the veg or what. Is that something you can help us, or it doesn't matter? Can we have on that plate a little bit of fruit, some rice and beans, a nice piece of plantain, good piece of fried fish? It doesn't matter.
All right, so the most important thing is that what the guidelines, speaking in general for guidelines, what the guidelines give to you is the fact that they want you to cover a certain quantity of both fruit, vegetable, grains, and protein for the day. So some people believe that at every single meal you need to have vegetable or fruit, but what they want is for within the 24 hours. So much hours is what would say designated for for food consumption and certain period of time. I mean, we don't necessarily we'll be discussing like what time you should eat and
Right.
so on right now. But the guidelines. What it gives to you is that within the 24 hours, it is expected that you would have covered certain amount of fruit based on whether you're male or female, what is recommended for you, whether you're a child or an adult, and also throughout the day you should have consumed certain amount of vegetables, certain amount of grains, because in general it says 6 to 11 servings of grain for the day, and that is in general.
Yeah.
And the 6 to 11 servings would be amounted to certain quantity,
Mhm.
and it's for you now to learn what the quantities are. And that's why I think most times people may get confused because they're wondering, okay, I should have 6 to 11 servings of grains or bread kind for the day, but what quantity should I have from that?
Mhm.
And that's why even when it comes to nutrition, it is very individualized because not everybody should have 6 to 11 servings. And if we were to jump a little bit over into people who are like diabetic and so on, we wouldn't recommend 6 to 11 servings of bread kind for the day. Right, so there are general rules and recommendations, and what we call, as I said, relative dietary allowance, which are standards. Because when we tell people about these things, we want them to understand that they are standards.
Yeah. And even the word servings, some of us say, well, I want to have one serving in this plate, the size of a, football.
Yes.
So we need to learn that as well.
That's important. So it is very important to understand the rules of thumb, because we don't want you to necessarily go out there and study a master's degree in nutrition, really. But what we would want you to understand that there are certain rules of thumb that you can be guided by. Like, for instance, they give you what we call layman ways of knowing if this is too much or not. So, for instance, they'll tell you, like, for instance, a serving of rice could be like a small fist, something like that, or a deck of cards for meat and those kind of things. So what they want you to do is to find the layman rule of thumb and see if you could work by that.
Right. And then you reference, I think, 4. You talk about your protein, your greens, your veg, and your fruit. I would imagine starch and carbs are the same thing.
Yes.
Do they come into play, or they are not?
Yes. So the grains are necessary. All the grains are starchy food.
Okay.
So every single grain that you consume is a starchy food. But the difference is that you have what we call non-starchy vegetables versus starchy vegetables. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. Because then if you have a starchy vegetable, like for instance, just to throw it out there, peas and corn is not recommended to be in certain mixed vegetables because they are called starchy vegetables.
High sugar content, right?
Right. Yeah. So you have to be very mindful of what the differences are. Whether if I'm sharing my plate, do I have just merely a bunch of food that when they all combined together is going to be loaded with starches versus are some of them going to be non-starchy vegetables versus starchy foods?
And then I will confess I didn't pay the closest attention sometimes in those classes, but I remember talking about complex carbohydrates and I going, why just feed me now? Some of them take a while to break down and it has this impact, and some go right through you, literally.
Yes, right.
So should we know those as well?
So once you understand because in terms of talking about complex starches, it goes back to the same grains. Right? So once you get the idea that grains can be separated from non-starchy vegetables, then you will understand that these are more complex, harder.
It takes a while to go through. Okay.
Yeah.
See, thank you for breaking it down. I want to ask about fruits, but back to the starches, and as you share, starches and grains, or greens and starches, all one and the same. What are some of the complex, those non-starchy greens, oats, I guess?
No, non-starchy vegetables are different from
non-starchy greens.
From yes.
So the non-starchy greens.
No.
What are some?
Right. So when it's grains, they're all starches.
Oh, okay. And then, but some greens then are complex and take a while. See that, boy? I was paying attention.
Yes.
Okay. So we're trying to confuse everybody, so that we pay attention. I learn in reverse, right?
So let me just for a second. Let me see if I can,
teach a moment for me now.
Right. Remove the confusion. If you have all sorts of grains, they're all starchy foods. If they're called vegetables, they can be starchy or non-starchy. So, for instance, pumpkin is a starchy vegetable, but you could not consider pumpkin as a grain.
Mm-hmm.
You would consider things like oat, rice, barley, buckwheat, farro. All those things are all grains, but they cannot be considered as vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? People consider now some of the things like even corn. Corn is not it's kind of a grain, but people would consider it vegetable in some countries. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. But in the Caribbean, we try to not confuse people because corn is a starch. You have corn starch. You can use it to make cornbread. It's a starch.
Yeah.
And so to remove that level of confusion, once it's a grain, it consists of, starches.
Okay. So once it's a green, it's a starch.
Yes.
All right.
And then once, if it's a vegetable, then you can have non-starchy and starchy vegetables. So some of them will have more starch than others,
Right.
but it's on the vegetable side.
Would it then, as we go into the break, the vegetables, starchy and non-starchy, would it be okay then that the non-starchy ones, you could be a little bit more generous in your serving,
Yes.
more liberal?
Yes.
And then some of the non-starchy vegetables would be what? The pumpkin you said is...
All right, so a non-starchy vegetable would be something like cauliflower, something like lettuce, pak choy, callaloo. What else do we have? Spinach. Those are more of the non-starchy side vegetable. Turnips. Maybe some of the kids don't know that. Chocho.
Yeah.
Maybe they
What
might.
about sweet potato?
Sweet potato is not a non-starchy vegetable.
Cassava?
It's not a non-starchy
Good piece of yam?
It's not a non-starchy vegetable. As a matter of fact, it's not even a vegetable.
It's not. But this is where, and I've shared with people, this is where even as adults, into this discussion, I reached out to a guy and we go into the break, he says, he could probably still remember the quadratic equation now, but food labels and looking at what foods, confusing, right? So when we come back, can we talk more about that? Can we ask about foods? Can we tell us more about the food policy? And we speak in. And the reason why I'm so grateful that you would take this time is that we as parents, what are our children getting to school? What are we sending for them? When they come out of school, how are we complementing their day? How are we concerned about their activity level? Are they energized? Are they lethargic? Is it more than just the work?
Yes.
Is it the food?
Many questions.
Do we have any answers? Well, and Mr. Tamara will give us when we come back. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
Caymanian graduate student Julian Menko recently represented the United World Colleges UWC Cayman Islands National Committee at the UWC International Congress held in Thailand from February 29th through March 2nd. A global movement, United World Colleges, uses education as a force to unite people, nations and cultures for peace and a sustainable future. Good afternoon once again. I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described the attack by the Israeli military on the world's central kitchen team, which killed 7 aid workers, as tragic but unintentional. He said it happens in war, but the country's military face some very difficult questions. The World Central Kitchen team was traveling at night in a clearly marked convoy of 3 cars on a coastal road in central Gaza. And Taylor Swift has joined Elon Musk as ranking among the world's wealthiest people, according to a new rich list. The American pop star entered the Forbes World's Billionaires list for the first time with $1.1 billion, along with Sam Altman, creator of the AI chatbot ChatGPT, on $1 billion. LVMH French luxury goods titan Bernard Arnault and his family topped the chart with an estimated $233 billion. Forbes said there were a record 2,781 billionaires for 2024. The figure is 141 more than last year and 26 more than the previous record set in 2021. Forbes added the elite were richer than ever with a collective wealth of $14.2 trillion. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio
Cayman. More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News. Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks to Community Dietitian over HSA, Ms. Tamara Whorms-Riley. And we're talking about school nutrition, school lunches, and the like.
Yes.
And I'm recognizing that for some of us, with the greatest of respect, we want to know. We don't really make any time because, well, we figure, you know what, it'll work itself out. Then there are some of us who try to know, and we struggle. I won't ask about food labels, but if you want to venture at some point, fair enough. But as we're talking about school lunches and we're into the break, you were sharing with us. Take us through more some of these things as we talk about school nutrition, and in particular, and as you shared, this is for the public schools. It's implemented across all the schools, across all the islands, whether they're primary or secondary. Okay.
Right. So the reason these standards are very important to our schools is that it allows the children to learn a little bit more about the variation between food. Basically, the variation between what is being served outside in most of our popular places of meal services versus what is the recommendation for foods that you should be consuming. Because a lot of the children grow up thinking that the outside influence on what they consider meals are what are the standards. You know, so they hear the popular advertisements, they hear that if they scratch stuff they can win things. You know, they kind of hear these things, and the information that is being sent out in the air is basically now more kid friendly than ever. It's not for adults anymore.
So marketing and influencing sort of.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's specifically now formulated to market to the younger generation rather than adults more.
Right.
So what the school food standards is trying to do in terms of through the Department of Education Services, who have a school meals department specifically for this purpose, is to make sure that within the schools there is a standard set for what children should actually eat. Yes, it may not be something that is in the homes, but if we set the standards in schools, they understand that this is what is recommended, and so it can be. We are trying to have it filtered down.
Yeah,
and
you have a point of reference.
Yes.
So with that in mind, and if we were to go into schools, tell us about the meals, and is it the same for the high school as it is for the middle, as it is for the primary? But what are those meals?
Right. So what the standard? So the government, as you know, now provide school meals for all government schools free of charge, and so for each meal there is a certain allocation, and they have breakfast, snack, lunch, and beverages, and the allowances for a Lighthouse school is $16.50 for the total allowance, which gives a breakdown of breakfast being for $4, snack being for $3, lunch being for $3.50, and they get beverages which include water and other types of beverages for $4. And then for the primary schools across the board, it's $4 for breakfast, $3 for snacks, $5 for lunch, and $4 for beverages, which is $16. And then for all high schools across the board, they get $4 for breakfast, $3 for snacks, $7 for lunch, and $4 for beverages, which the total allowance would give them $18 for the entire day. So they're able to get, a typical breakfast meal that could get them started in the morning, and then they have a snack which allows them, whether it be fruit, juice, water, or some of the typical guideline snacks that is provided through the guidelines, because there are snack allowances that we use, which is from the Alliance for a Better Generation that comes from the USDA that has a list of what is allowed as a snack.
Yeah. So we've seen the cost allocations across the different schools.
Yes.
For the different, but they all getting breakfast, lunch, snack, and
Yes,
a beverage.
Yes, they do.
And is the beverage, juices, water, coffee, tea, I mean, what is it the same across the board?
Yes, so the juices are the same across the board, but they are not same in size. So there are allowances for up to 8 ounces for children from the preschool up to the 6th grade, and then up to 12 ounces for high schools. And then you will have to have certain guideline as it relates to what juices are from the recommendation, what juices are allowed in terms of sugar content and calorie content. The same thing for the beverages from the milk group. So whether it be chocolate milk or plain milk or yogurt, there is a standard for how much fat is allowed and calories allowed for this.
And I think I would imagine parents hopefully know this and are not just looking at it and accepting it, but they're actually cognizant of it. So, for instance, the snacks, it's a $3 allowance, for instance, you say in Lighthouse and the high school, right?
Yes.
What is the snack consist of? What does a snack look like?
All right, so a snack could be sometimes they have like a packaged snack. It could be something with cheese. It could be something that is just like a baked chip, or it could be something that they baked, maybe, like some sort of muffin or something that they bake in-house. Also, it could be fruit, juice, water. So they get to choose 2 things, I believe, based on what they're allowed in terms of the limits of the limits of the cost.
And is it then for the student? I'd imagine breakfast is before school starts.
Yes.
Snack would be at that break time,
yes.
Recess or whatever.
Yes.
Then lunch is the lunch time, and
yes.
then that beverage could be with lunch.
Yes.
And then the snack also has a beverage, or is it the beverage would be one or the other?
Right. So they do get a beverage at snack time. It could be one thing or another, because some children will choose a juice, some people will choose a water. But we recommend across the board that at lunchtime, they are supposed to get a water with their meal.
All right. And then it is for the child then to access it. It's
Yes.
provided for, but if the child does not, for whatever reason, it's not dispensed.
Yes.
And then imagine forgive me for having the auditor and accountant background, but there's a tally made and then a submission and then payment. That's how that would work.
Yes.
It's there if you want it.
And also, just to add, is that they do have what they call the like a POS system that tells you what your child took.
So the parent can then go back and...
Oh, yes.
Okay, so today the child didn't do anything.
Yes.
You can say, well, why not? And, your dad made you, a particular treat, snack.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I accidentally got an email about another child, and I was like, that's not my child.
But this is where that information, that involvement, leveraging technology, we can get engaged in you knowing, whether the child is this. There are other potential benefits, not just for accountability and responsibility, but for you as a parent to know that your child is consuming or not.
Yes.
Breakfast is what? I like my oatmeal, but not everybody does. So what is breakfast like for the school child?
Right. So basically, they have various meals that they provide for breakfast. It could be, porridge or some sort of whole grain cereal with, as I said, with 1% or 2% or skim milk. They also sometimes provide things like egg omelets, fruit, those kind of breakfast items they have at school. But remember that each school have various menus. So they will send the menus, and these are looked over. And then this is what would be provided. So each school does have a canteen concessionaire or a canteen manager that oversees their menu in terms of the written menu. And then these menus are what is finalized for each month for each school who have their different canteen managers.
So that's canteen managers, the concessionaires, the schools. They will develop that.
Yes.
And then approve through.
All right. So the approval is done through us at HSA in collaboration with the school meal department at the Department of Education Services. So myself and our other outpatient dietitian, Mia has been going through the menus to make sure that all the guidelines are being met. We have at least 12 standards, if you don't mind.
No, please, yes.
All right. So we want to people to understand that it's quite quite simple. So there are 12 specific standards. So you have the standard 1, which says that you should have starchy food, which could be it's known as staples. So what I want people to understand is that staples are the names for what we call bread kind or ground provision. It's not necessarily just grains. So the staple foods are all our bread kind and ground provision. And so we should have a starchy food, which could be the staples or otherwise known as the grains that should be provided, right? And then we give a layout as to what this could be. So at least one high fiber starchy food or whole grain food available every day. So they do have, standards that they can understand. And then the standard 2, it say more fruit and vegetables. So it gives you at least one portion of fruit available at breakfast, at least one portion of fruit available at lunch, at least one portion of vegetable available at lunch. So this is what should be provided. Then you have standard 3, low-fat milk and dairy food that should be provided, and it gives you an outline of what these milk or dairy products should be. Then you have number 4. It talks about meat, fish, and other non-dairy products that gives you protein, how they should be provided. I can give you the first one. It says only lean meat, at least 85% lean red meat should be used. So that's the standard. And then it gives you the portion of fish and those kind of things. And then it goes on to number 6 that talks about the healthier drinks. And then the first one, it says water should be available at all times. Then you have low-fat milk and should be available at all times. So basically you could give it, if the child come in and ask for it at break time, you can offer it. And as I said, within the allowance for what is allocated to that child. Or some child may opt for it at lunchtime. It's available. Then standard 7 talks about the snack restrictions. So certain things like patties are limited to maybe every 2 weeks. Snacks available only at break time. So a child cannot just walk up to the canteen at breakfast time and say, I need a snack, because they have a standard. Then number 8, it talks about what are the confectionaries that should be provided. It talks about confectionaries and sweet, like snacks, sweet snacks and other types of confectionaries should only be available at break time, not at lunch, and not at breakfast time. Right? Then number 9, it says deep fried and other high-fat foods are restricted. So basically, yes, they are restricted, but they give allowance to how the foods can be prepared to give you that same type of flavor. So for instance, if you have a day that you're giving maybe say potato wedges or fries, if you want to call it that, they are supposed to be baked on a bake sheet or put in a convection oven. Right? Then you have number 10, fatty meat products. They're categorized and restricted. Fatty meat products limited to every 2 weeks. And then it gives you what, those things can be. Then number 11, it says salt and condiments are usually restricted. No salt available on counters or tables for after cooking a complete meal. So when they cook, a child can't come back to say they want ketchup, they want extra salt. If you give it to them already, then that's that.
Okay, but the pepper sauce should be there.
Right. So those are the standards that are available. And as I said, they are laid out in layman terms so that even parents can understand what the standards are.
Ms. Tamara, let's take the final break, and when you come back, share with us, and then I'm maybe ask, for parents who want to familiarize themselves, for parents who are, I didn't know that was available, how they can access it, including getting updated, and how often are they updated? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it once a month and the like? Can we talk about that as well?
Yes, sure.
All right. After the break, we invite you to rejoin us, and if there's a question, Ms. Tamara has all the answers. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard the news? Digicel is back with exciting offers that are too good to resist. Activate one of our brand new prepaid or postpaid plans today and experience telecommunications like never before. With more data, dedicated entertainment options like Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, and endless social text data for all your favorite platforms. Digicel is here to make sure you stay connected and entertained entertain. Whether you are on a prepaid or postpaid, you will also enjoy dedicated roaming data for the USA, Canada, and the Caribbean. It's all about value, and Digicel has got you covered.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Every journey requires responsibility. Our actions behind the wheel can have serious consequences. So let's make a commitment to safety. The Cayman Islands government invites you to take the Safe Drivers Pledge. The pledge is our opportunity to show our dedication to creating a safer environment on our roads. First, visit gov.ky/road safety/pledge. Read and check all the boxes, fill in your name, and click submit. It's that easy. Let's make our roads safer together and say no more for 2024. Visit www.gov.ky/road safety for more information and to take the pledge.
Well, Doc, I'm getting old. I'm out of shape, always on edge and off balance.
And how does it make you feel?
I guess it makes me feel like I should live better.
Here's my suggestion.
Are you saying I'm a blank piece of paper?
Turn it over.
Live well? Is this code?
No. Live Well from Foster's and CG Britk. A great resource on staying healthy, decluttering your mind, and managing stress.
Really? And it's free?
Really. LiveWell.Fosters.ky won't cost you a cent. This session, however, live well with Foster's and CG Britk.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Again, thanks very much for joining us, and thanks to Ms. Tamara Whorms-Riley, the community dietitian over at HSC. For future discussions, I've always benefited, whether you're here or you're in the back and you're sharing. Maybe we'll have discussions. I don't know about anybody else, but many times, even on a personal level, not only the remedies that our mothers and grandmothers used to, sort of give us to help with different ailments or help with our nutrition or focus, we may be losing some of them. Maybe we're thinking, they're just old wives' things. There's no empirical evidence, it's just anecdotal. Maybe it's psychosomatic. But I would like to talk to you about some of those things at some point for a future show.
Yes.
That'd be fine?
That'd be fine.
You made it with great wealth of knowledge. But as we talk about school nutrition, I can see the immediate benefits to our children. Is it then that their focus and attention, perhaps their energy levels, their health, physically and otherwise,
yes,
are impacted in a positive way?
Yes, right. So the thing is that, and one other thing I want to lay out to our listeners and parents as well is that the school food standards or the government standards for school meals provision is not just for the schools. You could use it as well as a rule of thumb as well, in your own homes. Because say, for instance, if you look at the guidelines, how simple they are, you could perhaps go through this with your child to say, okay, we're gonna make sure that, for instance, when we're doing a meal, this is what is outlined in the meal. And it kind of gives your child to an understanding that it's not just for school. it could be also implemented in the home. It's not that we're trying to put restrictions on your home, but it's kind of like a guide that you could also use, and perhaps this could be very helpful too.
But as a trained dietitian, and then we have, with great respect to private practitioners, we have the Health Services Authority as part of a quasi-government entity. Their knowledge, their training, their investment, helping us through our schools, impact our children and their health and their nutrition in a positive way. But we could take that on board. I mean, as parents, we want our children to be healthy and active and all the right things. But we might not know fully, well, should I give them this amount of food in terms of the portion, or should they get more of this or not as much as that? I could benefit even now.
Right. And one of the things too that I must outline is that these dietary guidelines, they can also eventually transcend into guidelines for the entire Cayman Islands. It's something that it would be good to replicate on a wider scale, which takes a lot of consultation, but it's something that could be used. And also just to let parents know that when you use these guidelines at home, it also helps you to understand more as it relates to serving sizes. Because remember, the dietary guidelines were developed by the USDA on the premise that there are relative dietary allowance per age, as you grow older. And so the fact that these are allowances that people should have in terms of serving sizes and portion sizes, sometimes people will ask, but don't it change? Not necessarily. It can be updated based on the information that is now out there as it relates to research. But when it comes to dietary allowance, look at it. We're not like becoming more giants as time progresses, if you understand me. As the era change, we're not changing into giants. So it doesn't mean that we need to change serving sizes and portion sizes as we go along. But what we do also say is that, in the schools, we ask as well to have like a certain level of leniency when it comes to, if you know that certain children play like sports, because I know this is a question that people have asked before. What if my child plays sports and requires a little bit more calories? We usually suggest that, for instance, the concessionaires, if they are aware of this child or these children, yes, they could have a little bit more leniency as it relates to portion the portion size and portion control when it comes to those children. But as it relates to children just generally coming back for seconds and thirds when it comes to meals, I really don't recommend that, because not all children are really created equal, and it's a little bit difficult to try to be lenient to everybody.
Right. And I guess in that sense that the child who is in the sport, perhaps much higher metabolism, but then there's some, we say, well, they're going through a growth spurt, they may want more accommodations and concessions as necessary.
Yes.
What about the nutritional content? You eat a plate of food, but sometimes you don't know, how nutritionally balanced and what's this, the nutritional value. Right. Are those things that we should know, and how do we know if we should?
And that's the thing, as it relates to, as we look at the guidelines, this is what we have aimed to create. Something that is going to create balance. Because if you look at each guideline, one, it gives a recommendation as to not just portion sizes, but the different food groups that should be made available. Right. And so when these food groups are made available, what we are looking at creating is a nutritionally balanced day when a child is in school. And so that is the reason why we want it to transcend into the homes, so that they can also understand that this is what creates a balanced meal. Okay.
So with that in mind, is there any empirical evidence, any research, any sort of analysis thus far? If we're following these guidelines in our schools, our children should be, to some extent, healthier.
Yes. Right. And so the USDA guidelines, and I just remember, just alluding to the document that I told you about. This has been extensive research, including dietitians, pediatricians, physicians, not just Americans, but they have taken advice from people in different areas to develop guidelines that they know can provide some sort of a healthier generation, So with that, then, for the Cayman context that we've employed this, are we seeing any
positive impacts in terms of maybe decreased obesity, increased activity, lower lifestyle illness? Are we seeing anything that shows that this is working?
Well, as you know, there was a new step research that was done. So I'm not privy to those data as yet, but it would be good to see if there is any such evidence. But what I can say is that we know that with this lower, with the portion controls and the lower, in terms of the quantity of foods that are being provided, that the more nutritious meals are being provided, we know that there is some evidence that this can be impactful in the long term, but it has to be accepted. And one other thing I was talking to a gentleman outside the door about this is that what we need to understand is that everybody has to be sold on this, because what we can't do, and we were laughing about it because a 12-year-old told me that the generation of Alpha and the Gen Z, they're a little bit more resistant and a little bit more resilient and tougher than the millennials and the boomers, because we were a little bit more tolerant and people could give us things. But now we have to have a discussion with this generation. And so the important thing is to discuss what we are providing to them in schools and let them have an understanding as to why it is important for them to have it, so that they can become a little bit more accepting to what we're trying to give to them.
They accept ownership. They have a sense of autonomy.
Yes.
Maybe a greater sense of accountability.
Yes.
So, Ms. Tara, as we close out the discussion, I'm inclined to ask a couple of things. We reference fruits, and not all fruits are created equal.
Yes.
So you talked about, diabetics and the sugar and the like. I'm gathering that some people will notice that they eat a particular fruit, how it impacts them. Another fruit, whatever format, its impact is more positive. Is that a fair generalization in terms of fruits and the like?
Well, yes, it's a fair generalization to say that some fruits are sweeter and some is going to be more savory or not as sweet as others. And so we usually recommend that sweeter fruits are provided alongside less sweet or more savory fruits, so that can create a balance. And also just to make a little reference to a publication that was done on July 4th, 2023. It's titled "Are We Putting the Cart Before the Horse?" and it was done by Dr. Pandian Natarajan. And he says here, or she says here, the increasing incidence of diabetes in children as in adults is directly related to the increasing incidence of overweight and obesity amongst children. Any attempt to control this epidemic with drugs or surgery would be counterproductive. It would amount to punishing the victim. The only way to control and reverse this epidemic, which portends grave consequences, is to prevent and, if present, reduce and reverse overweight and obesity and excess weight gain in children. The best way to do this would be by lifestyle management, particularly food management. Trying to control diabetes without ensuring food modification would be like putting the cart before the horse. So food is important.
Food is crucial. It's not just fuel, but it affects us now and in the future. And then this just shows a continued partnership between the house and the school.
Yes.
So when the child goes, there's something that's going to be longitudinal.
Yes.
I'm hoping this is something that we can continue to discuss. And of course, our platform is here as you wish, right? Yes. You're always a great educator. Teacher new comes out. And if I was closing thoughts, well.
All right. So one final word to our parents is that what we would want is to be is a partnership between us as the public health dietitian and dietitians in HSA, as well as the Department of Education Services School Meals Department, is that the parents have allow it to be a team effort where we can find out from the parents, when your child gets a meal, can we know whether or not it's a particular part of the meal that these children are throwing out, or if they're throwing out the entire meal? Because one of the general complaints is that my child doesn't like the meal, but then that's a general reference. Does my child not like a part of the meal or some parts of the meal? And that would give a better understanding as to why and what children are throwing out. Because when you a child will just look at one piece of your outfit and say, I don't like that, man. But then as a parent, you can say, okay, what do you not like?
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing that we would like to learn. Because when we hear that children are throwing out foods, what part of the foods do they throw out? Are they throwing out the healthier parts? Because then you as a parent would need to now try to play a deeper role in educating children as to what is, right for them.
And if I may hopefully compliment what you shared, I'm thinking too, as the parent, as the adult, are they copying us? We make up our faces at some particular item on the plate, or we say we don't like something. Has a child decided that the child doesn't like it because we respond to it in a negative way? Now, thankfully, I like my callaloo, but you can keep your pork. Doesn't mean that you can't eat it. I just don't want it. Right. Give me my chocolate. But everything in moderation. Mr. Tamara, thank you. Thank you very much, Mom.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that as we see this, and maybe as we have discussions, we can see where that comes in. You and the team at HSA in particular, as you look at the dietary needs in the schools, please continue to do a great work.
Thank you. And the guidelines can be found on the DES website as well.
Department of Education Services website. I think search the government, we'll find it. Any questions, call Susan. 1-800-534, call Susan. Thank you, Mom. Miss Susan, thank you. And to our listeners, Mr. Art is on in the morning. He's back. He's ready to rock and roll. Please join him. Always a great morning show. For the record, come back for Talk Today. We're going to talk to our friends at work at WORC. They got some things happening. And at 1 p.m., Miss Romellian and her entourage will be in the studio. Have a wonderful, safe, blessed, productive, and enjoyable afternoon.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And now, Barbados. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
You're listening to Susan on the PM Show.